Yo, what's up, guys? It's Israel, and these are going to be my 5 things I wish I knew before becoming a software developer. Number 1 is going to be only ever thinking about working at a FANG company. While these companies are great, and as you dive into the tech industry, or as you're going through college in your various degrees, you start diving into that, and it's like, oh, these are the top tech giants. They've run all of this stuff. You know, you go to the family cookout, and that aunt or uncle is going to be like, hey, when are you going to work for Google? When are you going to work for Amazon? Hey, you working on that? And it's like you start maybe sometimes like putting blinders on and being like, oh, I guess, you know, if I don't work at these companies, I'll never, you know, quote unquote, make it. And you kind of forget that there's a lot of other different opportunities. And I think we're all sort of guilty of these thoughts or feelings or these pressures of having to work at these companies. But, you know, there are pros and cons. Obviously, the pros are that they have an amazing salary, amazing benefits. You're going to be working with top of the line developers. But some of the cons are that you are just one tiny piece in this big machine that is this company. And they are amazing companies to work at, obviously, but they do box you in at the end of the day. They have so many employees, they have so many teams that, you know, you only maybe work on one small feature on one big product for a really long time. But that's because they don't need to divide you. They have so many employees. So you do become, I guess, like tiny, and maybe you do get boxed in into only like a certain tech stack or just certain project, and it could get boring, and maybe a reason why you end up just moving on, not because they're not a great company, just because they don't give you enough to do. I kind of contrast this with my experience at a small consulting company. I was in like every meeting from the beginning. I was also an architect. I did front end, back end, database, deployment, and managing all of that stuff. And I thought it was really cool, and I got a lot of experience on a lot of things. Sometimes people say, you know, you want to be an expert on one thing and not just like know a lot about everything. But I think really at a very young stage in my career, like it helped me a ton, and it was exciting, and I got to move on to other projects and work in other tech stacks. I could go from, you know, Angular.NET Core to like a React or with Node, you know, NoSQL or SQL. So I think that was really cool for me, and I would love still the opportunity to work for some of these companies like Amazon or Google. I think that would be really cool. But I guess like the magic of that, they're perfect, the end all be all, I think I've matured past that point. The second thing I wish I would have known is that you don't really need a degree to be a software developer or a coder or a programmer. The pathway I chose, I did go to a 4-year university. I got my bachelor's in computer science, and you know, that was great. I did though have to do a lot of supplemental learning. I, you know, did a lot of courses on YouTube. I did some Udemy, did some other stuff. And I did at my first job meet a lot of developers that were top of the line, really good at what they did. And they were either, you know, self-taught, or they did boot camps, or they did other forms of self-learning. And that's totally valid. I think the only other thing is like with pay, if you have a degree, but that's beside the point. Like when it comes to being a top-notch software developer, it is much more than just your degree. If you put in the hours, if you put in the work, if you are passionate about it, if you want to learn, it's just like anything in life for the most part. Software development, I guess, is like beautiful in that aspect, is that you can learn how to code by just putting in the work, by reading books, watching YouTube, taking a course, doing a boot camp. There's different ways to become a software developer, and you're not hamstrung to, you know, having to go to college. And if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider dropping a like and subscribing for more content about being a software developer, about the tech field, and coding tutorials down the line, so you don't want to miss it. The third thing I wish I would have known is that you cannot stop learning as a software developer. You have to be self-motivated. You have to keep putting in the work to know what's trending, you know, what languages or frameworks are hot, which ones are not, which languages or frameworks are getting updates coming soon. You know, you have something like Angular that gets an update every handful of months. So you have to stay up to date. You cannot become an obsolete developer that only knows, you know, antique stuff. And then you're going to the future and you're not going to be able to find a job if your job transitions into more modern things. I always said growing up that I wanted a job that was just like, I would learn, go to school, and then boom, I work, and then I don't have to study. And it was mainly because my dad was a doctor and I would see him study all the time. He'd be looking at medical journals, or he would be preparing for another certification. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And then I picked the tech field, where you always have to be keeping track of what's coming and what's going. So I definitely think that you have to be just motivated, and you have to be able to put in or figure out at least a little bit of time extra to just keep you current with what's going on in the tech industry. The fourth thing I wish I would have known is what languages or frameworks or what do I have to learn? I honestly, before I got my first job, I knew a little bit only because I'd taken some YouTube courses, and I had learned like Python on my own. I had learned how to do, you know, HTML, JavaScript on my own. I had learned C# on my own. These were things that I kind of did, but I didn't know like what is modern. Like, what do I need to learn? Like, my college taught me C++ and they taught me Java. And while those are sort of still used, they're not like the hot, what everyone's hiring right now, I guess. So really, like, that was something I had to figure out. I had to put in that extra little bit of time to be like, dude, I think I have to learn this, maybe. And I just wish I would have had someone that could have guided me and been like, look, you have to learn exactly this because you're going to be doing this. And getting into what I'm going to be doing is thing number 5 is going to be, what the heck do I actually do as a software developer? Truthfully, guys, coming out of college, I could not land an internship. I tried really hard and I couldn't get one. I got to the doorstep of a few and I just didn't get it. And through my YouTube courses, sure, I learned about a few different things. I took mobile development in college, but I never really got to be like, what does a software developer do on a day-to-day? I got to my first job. I had never really worked on a web app. I never really worked on an API. I never really worked with databases. I just knew that there was code and code was run and it did things. You have those college projects that you just have to execute or print something out or do some other type of high level back thing that you would never do in an actual job. And that was always something that I'm just what do I actually do? And definitely once I actually jumped in and started working on web apps or APIs like I was talking about, I really got the hang of it. I was like, oh, so this is what I should have been studying. Why don't they teach us how to build an API in college? Why don't they teach us how to build a full-fledged a web app front end back end database? It would be straightforward. So that's the thing that I'm really, I wish someone would have told me. And I want to leave you guys with a question. Drop down below if you guys have any other things that you wish you would have known before getting into the tech field. And if you're not in the tech industry yet, what is one thing that you do want to know? Comment down below. I'll be replying and I'll see you guys at the next video.